Here I come! Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Car King Sports and Variety Show. I'm your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Car King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the program this morning, I welcome a hard-throwing right-handed pitcher who played for the Mets in 1967. We welcome in Bill Dennehy. Bill, Brian C., thanks so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure, Brian.
Bill, I want to go back to your high school years. You began pitching as a sophomore in high school, and it was a Red Sox scout by the name of Todds Nicola, who also played for the Yankees, I believe, in 1929, who gave you some good advice. Tell us a little bit about Todds and what he meant to your professional career.
Well, I actually was first contacted by Todds, and one of the Red Sox scouts by the name of Broadway Charlie Wagner. They called the house. It was the winter after my sophomore season, and they asked us, whether or not my mom, dad, and myself would like to go to dinner with them. And at that time, we developed a relationship, and they told me they were very interested in me signing with the Red Sox. That following spring, I ended up not pitching well. In fact, I got thrown off the team by the coach because I hit a batter in the head and I didn't show a lot of compassion because I was so frustrated because I was really wild. I was really one of those guys when you talk about the high, hard one. God, I used to throw it off the backstop, in my hometown, and like a trampoline would come back to the catcher, so men on third base never scored. But I went to a tryout camp with the Red Sox, and I was pitching that night, and Todds was running the pitching. And the first thing he said was, anyone who is pitching tonight, raise their hands because you can't, actually work out with us and everything. Of course, I raised my hand. And, we were talking, and I said, I hate coming all the way over here for this tryout and not getting any advice or anything. And he said, you only need to do one thing, that is throw across your body. You're too overhand, you're too straight up and everything. He said, you do that one thing and everything will fall in place. It seemed like too simple of an instruction and everything, but, I followed his instructions, and that night I ended up pitching. I walked the first two batters that I faced that night, but the one thing I noticed is that instead of throwing balls that were letter to head high most of the time, I was throwing pitches around the knees. So even though I walked the first two batters, I decided I was going to stick with it, and I retired the last 21 batters in a row and pitched a no-hitter.
Wow.
And the next day when I went back to the tryout camp, he congratulated me and everything, and he said, did you pitch the way I told you? And I said, yes. And he said, the whole game? And I said, yes. And he said, well, that's all you need to do. The following week, I pitched a game and got to the seventh inning. Of course, these are seven-inning games, American Legion games. And I had two strikes on the hitter in the top of the seventh inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes on him. And all of a sudden, the assistant coach, who was my high school coach, comes running out, calls timeout and stuff. And, he says, hey, listen, he says, you got to throw a good curveball right now. No one's seen you throw a really good hard curveball. And I said, Coach, I'm one strike from pitching a perfect game. And his comment was, so what? You need to throw a curveball at this time. So I threw a curveball, and how about this for a conundrum? The batter was Billy Dennehy. There was a Billy Dennehy, myself, and a Billy Dennehy from East Hampton, Connecticut. He spelled his with 2 N's. And I hit him in the foot with a pitch. He went to first base. I got the next guy out, so I pitched 2 consecutive no-hitters. But I was 1 strike away from, pitching a perfect game. And that should be a lesson for anyone that's out there listening. When you're that close, to pitching a coach, keep your butt not on the bench. Don't go out there and break up somebody's rhythm. But Box was responsible for that tip about throwing across the body, and that really got me to a point where I got success throwing strikes right away.
Wow. So now, Bill, you signed with the Mets out of high school for $20,000. Tell us, how that feeling was like when you knew that the Met organization was going to sign you.
Well, first of all, Brian, we're going to get some numbers straight here. We won my senior year, we won the state championship, Class B championship in baseball. And I didn't sign after high school. I signed after the American Legion season, which was that summer. I signed in August of '64, and the bonus was $22,500, not $20,000. But the one scout that was always at all my games, so every one I pitched and everything, was a fellow by the name of Len Zanke, and he went out of his way. He got me a tryout at Chase Stadium with the Mets, and he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And when all the other clubs seemed like they were interested, but they also knew that I loved basketball and was thinking of going to college to play basketball, he kept pursuing it, and finally we just gave in, and I signed with the Mets in August of my senior year, right after the American Legion season.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Auburn Mets. It was 1965. You played A-ball with the Auburn Mets, right? The Penn League. Made your debut. And do you recall anyone else that was on that team? Anyone noteworthy to mention?
Yeah, very definitely. But before I do that, I want to mention one thing about my last year in amateur ball. I was 7-2 in high school. Won the 3 starts that I had in the playoffs, including a 11-inning one-hitter against the number 1 team, Lewis Mills, and then I was 9-0 in American Legion. The thing that's kind of interesting and maybe held for a long time is if you look at the total amount of innings I pitched in high school and also in Legion, I pitched 151 innings.
Wow.
Okay, if you double that amount, you would get 302. Okay? Out of 302 innings, I struck out 288 batters, 14 short of striking out 2 batters per inning. And in the Legion state championships, I pitched 11 innings, which is 33 possible outs, and I struck out 27.
Geez, that's a phenomenal record.
Yeah, that's one I think I could probably hold on to for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, that's really an amazing feat. We were talking to Bill Dennehy of the 1967 New York Mets. Auburn Mets, Bill, 65, right? You played A-ball.
Yep.
You made your debut. Anyone else on that team noteworthy of mentioning that you recall?
Well, the second baseman was Kenny Boswell. He came up with the Mets and was the second baseman during the '69 World Championship team. Clyde McCullough was the manager. Some of the other players, a lot of people won't probably remember them. We had a pitcher from 2 pitchers from California, Terry Crispin and Gary Inserti. A left-hander by the name of Steve Dillon and a right-hander by the name of Paul Allspach. We were the 5 starters for Auburn that year, but there wasn't any other member of that team that ended up getting to the big leagues besides the aforementioned Boswell and myself. I take it back, and also Greg Goosen, the catcher.
Greg Goosen, and also reading your bio was the Double-A team in which it was managed by Bill Verdon. And it was yourself and a very young Nolan Ryan. You guys were on the same team. And yourself, Dennehy and Ryan, was known for having the strongest arms in the league that year. Is that fair to say?
Well, to be honest with you, Nolan came up for the last 2 weeks of the season. He was an A-ball. He wasn't there all year long and everything. But in his first start with the Double-A Williamsport Mets, he struck out 21 batters in a Double-A game, and unfortunately lost the game by he walked a batter twice. Same batter, I can't think of his name right now, and the guy ended up stealing second, stealing third, and then scoring. So Nolan got beaten the game 2-1.
Now, how was it? How was Bill Verdon? I mean, Bill Verdon definitely knew the minor leagues because in '54, Verdon led the International League in hitting with a .333 batting average. What do you remember most about Bill Verdon?
A very disciplined, hard worker. He never let you get to a point of thinking that this game was easy. If I remember in August, towards the end of the summer where, I was pitching well and, kind of like was, being a little lackadaisical with some of my sprints, and he came out and kind of took me aside and said, hey, listen, the season's not over again. I expect you to get to a point of putting out 100% until the season ends. By far, out of all the managers I had in pro ball, Bill Verdon was the best manager I ever had.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good minor league ball player, reading his biography as well. We're talking to Bill Dennehy of the 1967 New York Mets. Bill, correct me if I'm wrong. 1967 was the big year for you. You made your major league pitching debut, right? Do you remember that very first day you stepped on the mound on a major league playing field?
Yeah, I do. I pitched in Philadelphia at Connie Mack Stadium, and we had a 5-man rotation with the Mets at that time. It was Don Cardwell, Bob Shaw, Jack Fisher, Tom Seaver, and myself. And first batter I faced was Johnny Briggs, left-handed hitting first baseman, and I struck him out. And at the time, I tied at Seaver. Seaver, in his first start against Pittsburgh, struck out 8 batters in his initial start, and I also struck out 8 batters in my initial start. And that record, from 1967, which was the most batters struck out by a rookie pitcher in his first game in the big leagues, stayed a Met record until, I believe, 2011, when Matt Harvey broke the record.
Wow, fascinating information you're telling me here. So you held that record?
With Seaver, yes.
Wow. Now, you and Seaver, in our collecting world, you have a relationship because you and Seaver were on that iconic 1967 Topps baseball card. My question to you is, do you recall the first time you saw your rookie card?
It had to be, early that spring. They took the pictures for Topps, to put on the cards in spring training. At the time, they didn't announce that they were going to put together multiple faces on a card, but they came out with a special promotion, and obviously it was brought into the clubhouse, and we were, giving copies of it. And, it was just, like I said, something that was brand new the first time they had done it, I believe. And I was just very thrilled to, have my picture on a card, period, and obviously over the years having it there with Tom makes it even more special.
Yeah, because of that rookie card, Bill, your name and legacy will forever be cemented in the minds of sports fans and collectors, and not only in this country, but there's so many collectors like in England and Canada. So you definitely left a legacy in our hobby because of your rookie card, along with the late Tom Seaver.
Right, and it's funny when he won his 300th game. He and I, when we came up together, we were good friends. Our lockers were right next to each other. But we were good friends, good teammates, very supportive of each other. But when he won his 300th game, At the time, my claim to fame was that I was the first player ever traded for a manager. We could talk about that in a second, Gil Hodges. And so I wrote him a little note saying, congratulations on winning your 300th game. It's about time you did something to hold up your side of the card.
So, and it was 1967 that you were traded to the Senators, correct, for Hodges?
Yes. And, there is a funny story behind that most people don't get. And that is that, in fact, the other day on ESPN's PITI, they talked about the first player ever traded for manager. And they said Manny Sanguillen for Chuck Tanner, which happened, I think, in 72. But in any case, in 1967, the Mets were looking for a new manager. They had canned Wes Westrum. And when they were dealing with the Washington Senators, Gil Hodges was under contract, a multi-year contract with the Senators, and he was signed through the 1968 season. So what they had to do was the Senators released Gil from his contract so he could sign with the Mets, and then the Mets ended up paying $100,000 and sent my contract to the Washington Senators. Most people don't realize that that's the way it had to be done back then so that Gil could receive a multi-year contract.
Huh. And you played for the Senators in '68. Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy playing in Washington?
I was hurt. One of the things to this day that really still is frustrating for me is that I had hurt my arm with the Mets, and went to. They sent me to Jacksonville because they thought back then this is how much the medical world operated back then. But they thought the heat would help my arm. It didn't. And I ended up taking a procedure down there. They didn't have MRIs. So what they used to do was they used to shoot dye into your arm. And, as they shot the dye into your arm, I was on the operating table. I was fully awake. I was looking at the monitor. And I said to the doctor, what are you looking for? And he said, well, as you can see, as the dye is going in, it's a straight line. If it bubbles, that means you have a tear in your rotator cuff. And son of a gun, a couple of, maybe a quarter of an inch later, it bubbled, and he said, yeah, you definitely have a tear in your rotator cuff. Now, that information was never passed on to the Senators. And when I went and saw their doctor, who was Dr. George Resta, who was also the team physician for the Washington Redskins, he kind of said, oh, no big deal and stuff like that. We'll just shoot you with some cortisone and everything will be fine. Well, it turned out that over the next, 26 months, I got 57 shots of cortisone in my shoulder. Oh my God. And although we can't prove it, what some medical people have, kind of come up with is the fact that some of that cortisone, either through the needle or, whatever, got into the artery, the main artery that works into the optic nerve in your eyes, and that was what caused my original blindness.
Right. Now an unfortunate situation, happened to you because you're legally blind in both eyes, and this can be attributed to the cortisone injections you were receiving during your playing career. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's no way of proving it. You can't go back that far, and be able to determine it was this shot or that shot. Was it, a cumulative amount of shots, But, actually, I had talked to a doctor who was the doctor for Mike Zimmer of the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, and he had a similar incident and stuff like this, and it turned out that that's what they attributed it to, the cortisone that he was getting in his shoulders when he was a lineman in the NFL.
Now, I read that being legally blind, it's a reduction in vision to 10% of the normal vision, right?
Well, right now I am completely blind. I had a cornea tear in my right eye, and I lost the vision, in that. And then I had, a series of small holes in my left eye. Right now, I can see light, but I can't read anything that's any further than probably 12 inches away with my left eye.
Man, so that means that, so really your other senses, I mean, how is something, like, how are you able to adapt to something like that? I would say that your other senses become highly more developed.
Well, that's a good observation, Brian. But, when I ended up, having this trouble initially back in 2005, I went and tried to apply for a Social Security disability. And when I took the test, to see whether I was, legally blind in both eyes, they found out that I had a learning disability. And my learning disability is oratory. And it takes me back to my high school days. If I had to read something out of a book where I could underline a magic marker and stuff like that, then I could remember it. But if somebody was doing a lecture, I very, very seldom could remember what you did. I couldn't keep up with writing the notes and stuff like that. In fact, a good friend of mine, a high school classmate, and just a wonderful gal by the name of Sue Maltese in one of our classes, she used to have carbon copy papers, and she would write down her notes and everything, and then give me the paper so that I had something I could take back and learn that way.
Man, Bill, something as tragic as this, something like this to happen to you, who do you hold responsible for this? What's being done?
Well, right now, they're still in the trial stages. There is something that, they're working on with the zebrafish. The zebrafish, they find out, if it loses an eye or loses a fin, or its tail or something like that, it grows back. So they're trying to find out whether or not they can use the zebrafish and mix it with, stem cells and apply it to a person's eye, in this case, in my case, and everything, whether or not the eye would regenerate.
Man, we really have to push that Major League Baseball can put you on a pension plan or something.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I, feel very, very frustrated about. Back in 1980, they ended up, making a deal with the Players Association so there wouldn't be a strike. And what they did was that they took every player that played for before 1980 and literally said there wasn't enough money to be able to give us a pension, and they ended up, signing their deal and everything, and we were just kind of left out in the cold. We ended up suing Major League Baseball and the Players Association, and won in circuit court, but lost it in the appeals court. And finally, in 2011, baseball, and it was funny because it was the Players Association, Alumni Association, and Major League Baseball all got together, and they came up with a, what they call a charitable payment, a yearly charitable payment to take care of us and everything. But that charitable payment, in my case, is a total of $3,750.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's not monthly. That's one time a year, $3,750, and that's not even for a lifetime. They have to renew it every year, so we don't even know whether that will be in place next year.
It's really unfortunate, but you sound great. I have a couple of minutes left, Bill. If we can go back a little bit to after your pro baseball career, you became a coach, right? You coached MVP Jeff Bagwell at the University of Hartford.
I also coached, before I got the Hartford job, I coached for the Boston Red Sox. in their Double-A teams, both in Bristol and in New Britain, Connecticut. I had the pitcher of the year all 3 years. Two of the notable ones, Brian Denman was the first one. He got a small shot in the big leagues. But the second one was Oil Can Boyd. And the third one, when we won the Eastern League Championship, was Roger Clemens.
Wow.
So I had the opportunity to coach those guys. And then when I took the job at Hartford, we had seen Jeff. He was going to high school in our hometown of Middletown, Connecticut. The number one player at that time in high school was a catcher by the name of Rick Murray, but obviously we followed Bagwell and recruited him. He hit 385 his first year or his last year in high school, and then when he came to us, his first year in Division I baseball, he hit 402.
Wow, and I have 1 minute left. I want to get this question in. 1971, Bill, you played for the Tigers, right? Billy Martin was the manager. Kaline Lolich was on that team. Did you get along with Billy Martin, Al Kaline?
Got along with Kaline fabulously. I was Mickey Lolich's roommate. Got along with Billy as best you can. He wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. My frustration there was I had never pitched relief before in my life, and outside of one start, all my appearances with the Tigers were in relief.
Wow, so I really appreciate your time. 30 seconds left. Any current projects that you're working on or in the foreseeable future?
Well, right now, the only thing that I'm trying to do is, through my daughter's help, Heather, she's been invaluable to, paying all my business accounts, and rent and so forth, and we're trying to get an echo machine in my house working and everything. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to do now. And I also have, and it isn't on a regular basis, but along with one of my former high school teammates, Don Lombardo, the Grog, we do kind of a basic couple of times a week on my website, not my website, but my Facebook page where we talk different stuff about baseball, primarily with the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Mets.
Bill Dennehy, thank you so much for your time, and, you stay safe, okay?
Thank you very much, Brian. Same to you.
Take care of yourself. 1967 New York Mets pitcher, Bill Dennehy. Until next week, happy collecting to all.